Hello and welcome. I'm Elaine Canyon, sweetly writing happily ever after, one book at a time. And in this video, we're building your cover design toolbox. I'm really excited about today's topic, and I'm excited because we're going to talk about illustrated book covers. Specifically, overcoming a problem. I see a lot of illustrated book covers that are done by authors on their own. They all tend to have one thing in common, and that is that their first few iterations are very flat. And it can feel like an illustrated book cover is a flat form. And I'm going to show you just with a Google search. I've just done a Google search, and we're going to go through and talk about a few of these, how to create some depth and layering so that your illustrated book cover doesn't look flat. So let's jump in. Okay. So like I said, this is just a Google search, and all I've looked for is illustrated book covers. I haven't been specific about anything as far as genre or anything like that. So let's look at some of these. One of the ones that stands out immediately that I really like is this one right here. So this book is called Playing with Fire, and it is by L.J. Shen. And there's actually not as much going on here as you think there is, but it's such a great use of depth that this designer is able to create the feeling that this illustrated book cover has a lot more going on than it does. And they're doing this mainly with the use of color. So what you can see here is that the fire is created by doing different colors and shape and layering that on top of itself. So we've got basically the same shapes going through here. They've changed it up a little bit to help add some more dimension. And then they've put the couple inside of those flames. And that makes it so that it pulls the eye in. And again, this is our darkest thing. Of all of our elements on here, our darkest element is the couple, and that's on purpose. It's to pull you in. The other thing that they've done here, because it is a completely flat background, that background color has nothing to it. It doesn't have a gradient. It doesn't have any lighting. This is the same color throughout. It does look like it might get just a little bit lighter down here, but that could also be the template that they've thrown this in to make it look like a three-dimensional book. But what they've done is they've used the big flames here that also are a little bit feathery. So they're playing two sides here. We've got feathers and we've got flames, and they mesh really well together because they're using the same curves. So you can see little bits here where like, oh, but that looks like it's part of the flame, but then you can see parts here where it's like, no, that actually looks like feathers. And then on top of that, we've got leaves and we've got flowers. And so this designer is creating depth by using multiple elements and using them in a way that still frames the most important pieces, Playing with Fire, which is the title, and then our couple here, because that's going to help us communicate genre. So you can still have that completely flat background and have depth and make sure that your cover looks like there's more going on than there actually is. So now let's find another example here that I like this one a lot. Let's click on that. So this pulls us into Amazon. So this is one of the Disney books that you see that they pay writers to write stories for. And what they've done is rather than, they're using framing again, just like let's see, there we go. They're using framing again, just like the other cover was, but you can see in their background specifically that we have almost a sponge effect. Like there's a glow, a dissonance that's happening that gives that background a texture, and that texture carries throughout. You can see it also in the Cinderella overlay, and then you can see it in the trees down here as they come up. And you can see it even just a little bit. It's not as prominent, but you can see it just a little bit in the shine on the broken glass slipper and on the stones in the dungeon. So we see that same overlay across most of this cover. And what that does is it helps the cover not to look flat, because if the cover background was just this flat pink and the shape of the clouds, we'd have a very different feel and it wouldn't have the depth that it has. So now we're back into the Google search that I started before. And I wanted to look at, there was one other that I saw that I liked, this one. So this one is called Idle Hands, and this one uses lighting and color contrast to create depth. So this background of the cover, they're using lighting with gradient, and the brightest part is here behind Idle Hands, and this is actually the flattest part of the cover. So in this area right here behind the title, it is just that straight red. But as we move out, you can see that the gradient, as it fades, we also fade into a texture. It isn't just the flat red anymore. We've moved into a darker red with some of that sponge effect, and it's creating depth to this cover. Now they've also added depth by using white and black and playing off of each other that way. But the most important thing I want to point out here is that we don't have just a flat cover in the background. We have more than that going on, and that helps to create depth, and it's part of what makes an illustrated cover look professional. So another one I wanted to look at is this one right here. And I like this one because what it's done here is it's trying to be an oil painting, which adds some really cool depth. So this is definitely a pre-made book cover. It tells you right here it's a pre-made. And what this designer has done is they've gone through, and all through this background, it looks like an oil painting. It has the swirls that are so common in oil paintings and the textures that are so common in oil paintings. And it adds a lot of depth, and it creates contrast, because you'll notice that our female character here at the front, she is a flat color. She is outlined. We do have some outline through her, and her hair has some texture and some coloration to it. For the most part, she is a flat color. And that could have been very stark. But because this designer has gone through and created this oil effect through the background, and then put her on top and carried a little bit, a semblance of that oil painting into her hair, this cover, while illustrated, has so much depth to it, and it doesn't look flat. So now I want to show you a cover that does actually have a flat background and doesn't have a whole lot of elements to it. And it's this one up here. So we're looking at the one on the left. The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren definitely has more to it, and I might talk about it here in a second, but it's basically doing the same thing that I talked about with the pre-made that I showed you, where it is using watercolor effect to create some depth. But this one has a straight flat cover. So You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. And that pink does not have any variation to it. It does not have any depth to it. It is a flat cover. But what the designer has done to create more to it is they are allowing that background, that flat pink, to become something that fades away. And it essentially is just the backdrop to make sure that you focus on the most important pieces. So we have the female main character up here peeking through the window, and she's dropping a bouquet of flowers, and she has a very snarky look on her face. That's the other thing that is working for this, is that these characters have faces on them. If you're going to use a flat color as your background and you're not going to do anything to it, and then you choose not to put faces on your illustrated people, that can create more work for you. You might need to start adding more to it. And I have another cover to show you for that. So the color and the characters are what make this cover look less flat. And then you can see that she's layered it as well, or he's layered it, who's ever designed the cover. So there's things in front of the letters, and that creates a semblance of depth without having to add anything to that background color and make it look like there's more going on than there actually is. So now let me show you the example of when you have a flat cover and you don't have faces. So this is Leah Dobrinska's, I hope I said that right, Death checked out. And you can see this is a flat color in the background again. There's no variation in this color. However, we also don't have faces. And this is where we need to add more to make sure that the cover does not look amateur. So all of the vines of flowers and leaves come through here and they help to frame it. And then there's texture in other places, like there is texture in the lettering. And there's texture in the shading of the cat. The cat has different colors. It's meant to look like there's depth to the cat. There's also shading in the leaves and in the flowers themselves, and in this coffee cup up here. So there's a lot more going on around it that creates a scenario where we don't need to worry that the background color is a flat color without any texture and without any lighting. So I hope that was helpful. I'm going to do another video like this one with photo manipulated covers so that we can talk about how lighting is used in those, because for photo manipulated covers, lighting is one of your most important things. That is one of the main ways you're going to be able to create covers that look professional, is if you have a good grasp on your lighting and on your ability to layer on top of things. So that's next video. If there were things in here that you wanted to know more about as far as doing an illustrated cover, make sure you let me know down in the comments. If you saw a cover in here that you thought, oh, that looks really cool, and I want to know more about that cover and what's making it work, or if you have a cover yourself that you want to have me go over, whether it's by a different designer or you've designed it yourself, let me know down below in the comments. I would love to be able to make videos specific to the things that you have questions about. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps other authors find it. If you don't want to miss any other videos about cover design, discovery writing, or self-publishing on a shoestring budget, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I post videos on Wednesdays about those 3 topics, and I hope to see you again soon.